Join us on this 7 miles kayak from Three Cliffs Bay to Port Eynon on the South Gower Coast. Watch on to find out how Lloyd and Sheldon fared on their first kayak, what happened when Sheldon punctured his inflatable kayak shortly after launching, and how he coped with the tidal race off Oxwich Point. We also provide useful information such as safety, tides, danger spots, logistics and local history. It's about 11:30 in the morning and we've parked up in this car park at Parkmill. We've walked about half a mile down the valley from Parkmill and we're inflated now by Pennard Pill just below Pennard Castle. Our plan is to kayak about half a mile from here down Pennard Pill to Three Cliffs Bay Beach and then out onto the sea. That's Pennard Castle up there above us. It's about 1:45 and we finally set off. Sheldon looks like he's already spinning out of control in his Intex kayak. I think Pennard Pill is tidal, so you can probably only paddle in it when the tide is in. As you can see, some parts of Pennard Pill are a little bit shallower than we expected. Here comes Lloyd with Pennard Castle in the background. We seem to have lost Sheldon, and we haven't even got out onto the sea yet. Well, Sheldon seems to have caught us up. Pennard Castle in the background was built back at the end of the 13th century. We're down where the Pill meets the beach now. You can just see the beach the other side of that sandbar there. The water's a bit shallow over this sandbar going out onto the beach, so we've got to drag the kayaks over it. We finally got to the beach down at Three Cliffs Bay. Unfortunately, the base of Sheldon's Intex Explorer kayak seems to have deflated, so I've pumped it back up, but I've got a feeling he's probably punctured it on the way down Pennard Pill. We're just setting off from Three Cliffs Bay, so it's 7 miles to the west of Port Eynon. Despite the fact that he's a novice, Lloyd looks like a natural paddler. When we were on the beach, we were talking to 2 Coast Guard guys who warned us about the tidal race off Oxwich Point. Oxwich Point that the 2 Coast Guard guys warned us about is over there in the distance. I'm looking back east now, towards the direction of Southgate and Port Eynon. The Pro Aqua inflatable kayaks that Lloyd and I are using are much more durable than the Intex Explorer kayak that Sheldon is using. We haven't told Sheldon that though. Sheldon drew the short straw today with the Intex K2 Explorer. It's not the most robust kayak.
Lloyd! He's on his phone, he is.
We're looking westwards down Oxwich Bay, which I think after Rosilly Bay is the second longest beach in the Gower. I think the bottom of Sheldon's Intex Explorer kayak has definitely got punctured coming down Pennard Pill. It's only the side pontoons keeping him afloat. Oxwich Bay is a cracking beach almost 3 miles long and backed by sand dunes. This 7 miles route from Three Cliffs Bay to Port Eynon on the Gower is part of my undertaking to kayak all of the way around the Wales coast bit by bit. I'm panning back east towards Southgate and Three Cliffs Bay. And then you've got Oxwich Bay, of course, Penmine Village up there, and that big ridge in the background is called Kevin Bryn. Over there to Lloyd's right, you've got the village of Oxwich, which has got the ruins of a castle and also has a medieval church. Sheldon is looking a little bit deflated, but he's still ploughing on westwards towards Port Eynon. The crew are doing well considering it's their first kayak, inspired on by the promise of a beer in the pub when they get to Port Eynon. I bought the 2 green Pro Aqua kayaks from Class Olson, but I don't think they sell them anymore. The Intex K2 Explorer kayak that Sheldon's using today is like an entry-level kayak. It can be used solo or tandem. It looks like there's been a huge landslide over there. Just as well it didn't happen when we were going past, or it might have caused a mini tsunami. We use inflatable kayaks because they're so much easier to transport than hard shells. I know Sheldon's got a puncture in his today, but that's the first time I've had one of our inflatables get a puncture. It's about 2:30. It was high tide at about 1:45, so the tide will start turning now and going out, which means it runs east to west on this bit of coastline. So it should now be with us, taking us down towards Port Eynon. Sheldon's really struggling now because he sat so low in the kayak with the deflated floor. He wanted to stop at Oxwich, but we coaxed him onwards. Whilst it's best to go with the tide on the South Gower Coast, it's not so strong that you can't go against it. That's Oxwich Point ahead, so we better batten down the hatches. Quickly panning east towards Southgate and Three Cliffs Bay that we launched from earlier. Whoa, so we're on Oxford Point on the tidal race, and the RNLI guys were right, it is a bit rough. We managed to get through the tidal race off Oxford Point without losing any members of the crew. That's looking back towards the rough patch of water off the point. Oxford Point certainly is a rough bit of water, and I should imagine it's particularly rough halfway between low tide and high tide. While it was quite rough off Oxford Point, it was only rough for about 25 or 30 metres or so. Looking westwards, you can just about see Port Eynon Point coming into view in the distance over there. The semi-deflation of Sheldon's kayak has held us up a bit, but to be fair, he seems to be doing well, and hopefully it hasn't put him off kayaking. It's coming up to 3 o'clock, and we've got about 2.5 miles to go to Port Eynon. You can just about see Port Eynon over there to the west at the base of that headland. It seems that as well as the base, the right pontoon is also now deflated in Sheldon's kayak. There's a cracking section of the Wales coastal path that runs along the ridge over there towards Port Eynon. Sheldon's kayak looks like it's developing a bit of a list to starboard. As always, when I was planning this paddle today, I checked the sea swell forecast using surfforecast.com. Sheldon's kayak appears to be listing about 20 degrees to starboard, so I think we're going to have to stop soon, unfortunately. That sort of whining noise in the background is some people on some jet skis. I think it's about 2 miles now until we get to Port Eynon. Awesome weather conditions today for paddling. You can just about make out North Devon over there on the other side of the Bristol Channel. Our logistics today involved leaving one car at either end of the route so we can get back to the start when we finish. If you were doing this route and you only have one car and you want to use public transport, then there is a bus 117 and a 118 that runs between Parkmill and Port Eynon. We're going to have a lunch stop now and try and re-inflate Sheldon's kayak. The water is super clear here. You can see the bottom even though it's about 6 or 7 metres deep. We're going to pull up on that little beach over there for a well-deserved lunch break. We just had a nice lunch stop and we've swapped kayaks, so I'm now in the Intex Explorer. When we stopped for lunch we re-inflated the floor of the Intex Explorer, but it's already starting to deflate. When we stopped back there on the beach, we found out that the right pontoon of the Intex had deflated because the valve had come loose, so I re-inflated it before we set off. Well, we've overcome the adversities thrown at us on this journey, and we're only half a mile from Port Eynon now. The end is in sight. That's Port Eynon there, only about a quarter of a mile away now, and then that's Horton over there on the right hand side. Lloyd has had to drape clothing around his limbs to try to stave off the sunburn.
Geography, I did BA geography.
It's coming up to 5:30 and we're nearing the end of our 7-mile kayak from Three Cliffs Bay to Port Eynon. We're finally landing at Port Eynon. What a great kayak on an amazing stretch of coast. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, then consider subscribing by clicking on the left below. Click on the right below to go to our playlist of our other trips around the Wales coast. Happy paddling from the kayak crew.